entitled, "Karen Demands Access to My Garden Because They Want Fresh Vegetables." Growing up, my parents always had a garden. My dad was really good at growing plants, and he thought the chemicals on store-bought vegetables and fruits were bad for us. So he decided to grow as much of our food as possible. Our backyard was always full of tomatoes, cucumbers, beans, peppers, and herbs. Many of our neighbors felt the same way, and we often traded our vegetables with theirs. My dad's dedication to gardening made me appreciate fresh, homegrown food. After I graduated from university, my parents surprised me with a tiny house in a different neighborhood. It was a cute little place, perfect for starting my life on my own. Moving in was exciting. I spent weeks decorating my new home, making it cozy and reflecting my style. The living room had bookshelves full of my favorite novels, a comfy couch, and a few plants to add some greenery. The kitchen, though small, was well designed, and I couldn't wait to cook meals with vegetables from my future garden. Given my upbringing, it was natural for me to start a garden of my own. I wanted to save money and enjoy fresh, chemical-free vegetables. My new neighborhood was different from my old one. No one else had a garden. Most of my neighbors were curious and complimented my efforts. For the first few months, everything went well. I spent my weekends digging, planting, watering, and caring for my little garden. Watching the plants grow day by day was rewarding. As summer approached, my garden started producing lots of vegetables. There were big tomatoes, crisp cucumbers, colorful bell peppers, and fragrant herbs. Seeing my garden thrive made me proud and happy. One day, as I was tending to my plants, an older lady from the neighborhood, whom I had seen a few times, stopped to chat. She introduced herself as Karen.
"Your garden is wonderful,"
she said with a warm smile.
"It reminds me of my childhood when my mother grew vegetables in our backyard."
"Thank you," I replied, pleased by her compliment. "It's been a lot of work, but it's worth it." Karen continued to visit occasionally, always with kind words about my garden. One afternoon, as I was picking cucumbers, she approached me again.
"Those cucumbers look delicious,"
she said, eyeing them hungrily.
"Would you mind if I tried one?"
"Of course not," I said, handing her a freshly picked cucumber. "Here you go." Karen took a bite, and her face lit up.
"Oh my, this is fantastic. So fresh and crisp. Thank you so much."
I was happy to share my produce, and it felt good to know someone else appreciated my efforts. However, as the weeks went by, Karen's visits became more frequent and her requests more demanding. She started coming by almost daily, asking for various vegetables from my garden. Initially, I didn't mind sharing, but her sense of entitlement soon became clear. One evening, as I was watering the plants, Karen walked into my garden without even saying hello.
"I'll take some tomatoes, cucumbers, and peppers today,"
she announced as if placing an order at a grocery store. I was surprised by her boldness. "I'm sorry, Karen, but I can't just give you all these vegetables. I need them for myself too, and I trade with some friends and family as well." Karen's face darkened.
"Oh, come on now. You have plenty. Besides, I don't see why you should be the only one to enjoy fresh vegetables."
Her words left me speechless. I had worked hard to grow these vegetables, and her attitude was infuriating. Trying to stay polite, I said, "Karen, I'm happy to share occasionally, but I can't provide for you regularly. Perhaps you could start a small garden of your own?" Karen scoffed.
"I'm too old for that. It's much easier for me to just take from yours."
With that, she grabbed a few cucumbers and tomatoes and walked off, leaving me standing there in shock. Over the next few days, I noticed that vegetables started disappearing from my garden even when I wasn't around. It became clear that Karen was helping herself whenever she pleased. Fed up with her behavior, I decided to confront her directly. One morning, I caught her red-handed picking tomatoes from my garden. "Karen, this has to stop," I said firmly. "You can't just take my vegetables whenever you want. I've worked hard to grow these, and you're taking advantage of my kindness." She looked at me defiantly.
"You're young and capable. You can always grow more. I deserve these more than you do."
I shook my head in disbelief. "That's not how this works. If you want fresh vegetables, you need to either grow your own or buy them like everyone else." Karen huffed and threw the tomatoes she had picked back into the garden.
"Fine, but don't expect any kindness from me in the future."
With that, she stormed off. I felt a mix of relief and anger. It was unfortunate that it had come to this, but I knew I had to stand my ground. From then on, I made sure to secure my garden with a small fence and kept a close eye on it. Thank you all for the kind words and support from the community. For a few weeks, there were no more interactions with Karen, and I thought the situation had finally been resolved. However, one night before writing this update, someone sabotaged my garden. All of the plants were damaged and killed. I suspect Karen might be behind this, but it doesn't add up completely because if it were her, she would have taken the vegetables rather than just destroying them. Now, I'm left with a ruined garden and a lot of frustration. Has anyone else experienced something similar? And do you have any ideas on how to resolve this situation? Any advice would be greatly appreciated. Comments. Comment 1. Maybe you should install some security cameras around your garden to catch whoever is doing this and have evidence for the authorities. Comment 2. I'm so sorry. Try talking to Karen again, but this time with a witness present, and make it clear that any further damage will be reported to the police. Comment 3. I'd consider building a higher fence or adding a lockable gate to keep unwanted visitors out of your garden. Comment 4. Reach out to other neighbors and see if anyone saw or heard anything suspicious. They might have useful information. Update 1. Thank you all for the comments and advice. Your support means a lot. After reading through all the suggestions, I decided to install security cameras around my garden to catch whoever was responsible for the damage. Unfortunately, by the time I got the cameras up, most of the plants had already died. It was heartbreaking to see all my hard work go to waste. Replanting was not an option since it was almost the end of summer, and the new plants wouldn't have enough time to mature before the season ended. I started asking around the neighborhood, hoping to gather some clues. I told my neighbors about the sabotage and mentioned that I suspected Karen. Surprisingly, many of them shared my suspicion. Karen had a reputation for being overly nosy and entitled, which only fueled my belief that she was behind the destruction of my garden. Weeks went by without any new developments. Just as I was beginning to lose hope of ever finding out who the culprit was, Karen showed up at my doorstep one afternoon. Initially, I thought someone had informed her that I was suspecting her, and I braced myself for an angry confrontation. However, to my surprise, she simply asked about the garden and why I had stopped tending to it. I explained to her that most of the plants had been killed and that there was no point in replanting them so late in the season. To my shock, Karen looked genuinely sorry. She admitted to damaging the plants herself, not realizing they would die completely. She confessed that she really enjoyed the fresh vegetables from my garden, but couldn't afford to buy them herself. Her actions were out of desperation, not malice, and she deeply regretted what she had done. Despite my anger at her for destroying my hard work, I had an idea. Instead of confronting her harshly, I decided to offer a solution. I proposed that next season, I would help her create her own garden. Given her age and inability to do heavy work, I offered to assist her with the planting and maintenance while teaching her the basics of gardening. This way, she could have her own fresh vegetables without resorting to damaging my garden. Karen was genuinely happy with the offer. She thanked me profusely and promised to make amends for her actions. It was a surprising turn of events, and as I thought about it, I realized that perhaps this lady wasn't really a Karen after all. She was just an elderly woman in need of a little help and understanding. Reflecting on the situation, I felt a mix of emotions. I was still upset about the loss of my garden, but I also felt a sense of hope. By helping Karen next season, I could ensure that both of us had fresh vegetables to enjoy. Plus, it would be a good opportunity to build a better relationship with her and maybe even with more neighbors. The community could come together, and my garden could be a part of that unity. I decided to share this update with the community, thanking everyone once again for their support and advice. It had been a challenging time, but I felt optimistic about the future. And who knows, maybe helping Karen with her garden would turn out to be a rewarding experience for both of us. Sometimes, even the most unexpected situations can lead to positive outcomes. In conclusion, what started as a frustrating and disheartening experience had the potential to become something positive. By turning an adversary into a friend and collaborator, I hope to create a better, more supportive community. And with a bit of luck and hard work, next season's garden would be even better than the last.